Well, good afternoon and welcome back. I hope you've had some refreshments over the last hour or so. We haven't got long to go of this year's show, which is a great shame, but InstallerSHOW 2024 really has been pretty spectacular so far. And welcome back here to the Installer Plaza and sponsored by our good friends at Valent. And we're now going to have a discussion on how plastic plumbing manufacturer Polypipe Building Products and merchant Wolseley UK are taking steps to identify and recycle waste plastic, where it's created through the construction supply chain, touching on manufacturing, merchanting, contracting and new house build. I'm delighted to be joined by a couple of very nice people with me. So tell us who you are and where you come from.
Hiya, I'm Becky. I'm the Channel Marketing Manager for Polypipe Building Products. We're the manufacturer and we're based in Doncaster.
My name's Jason. I'm the Senior Category Manager at Plumb Centre, so I look after drainage and plastic plumbing.
Brilliant. Well, Becky, Jason, welcome. And how long has this sort of collaboration been going on for?
Well, it turns out we've been trading together for about 25 years now.
Is it really?
Yes,
Wow.
that covers plastic plumbing, rainwater, soil waste traps, bit of underfloor heating, underground drainage, all the good stuff.
Very, very much so. Sort of, it's a good
Nice
relationship.
and close.
It's a good relationship, and it works really well. Sort of, and it's something we do strongly as a united supply chain.
Strong, powerful relationship. Excellent. And Jason, how did you start working on this project together? What brought it about?
Well, we recognise that sort of we're in both a fortunate and sort of responsible position to have a really strong environmental and social governance policy.
Yeah.
So we looked at how we could do that within both our businesses, and the realisation was that the influence that we had with our customer base, over 400 branches, the house build sector that we work with, and the primary merchants that we work with, such as Polypipe, we've got a great opportunity to look at the products that we use.
Yeah.
So we looked at using how we use plastic and how we return that plastic into the supply chain to create that closed loop policy. So that's worked really well so far. It's been really interesting.
It sounds like there's a lot going on. You've been having trial stages and so on. How have they gone?
They've gone exceptionally well. So we started it off looking internally at what would be the easiest way of doing it. So we have a lot of branches that stock drainage within the branches, and through normal usage within the branch, there'll be an element of damage within there, an element of UV damage, whether that be broken. So we looked within our own estates, and we looked at the product that we could send back for recycling that was unable to be sold. So that was done, and we worked that within the branches and worked closely with Polypipe, and that's already gone back into recycling.
Right.
So that's worked really well. And the second stage was we looked at our commercial partners, and what we could do with that is we worked with a company called GTC. Now, GTC we supply cable to, and that cable supplied on cable reels. And those cable reels, we needed to understand how we get those back, how we work with, how we support the commercial customer. So those actually come back to us now on a palletized, and that pallet is sent back into Polypipe for granulization and back into the product base.
Brilliant. So, Becky, what does Polypipe do with the waste? We've got a little bit of insight there.
Yeah, so like Jason was saying, when we identify a waste stream somewhere in our supply chain, Polypipe will have a look at what our nationwide fleet of vehicles is doing delivery-wise that week. We will look at the smallest possible diversion to go and collect that within our normal activity, so we're not adding extra vehicles.
I was going to say, you're not adding extra journeys.
Absolutely not.
Right.
Luckily, we have our own fleet that's up and down the country all the time. So we will go and identify the waste, collect that waste, bring it back into our environmental management area, which is based on our manufacturing site in Doncaster. And once it's there, we'll separate it into its component parts. We'll recycle the types of plastic that we can on site, and then that goes back into our manufacturing process. And then anything that we can't use directly, we pass on to a third-party specialist recycling partner.
And have you had to make a lot of investment into this to make this happen?
Luckily, at this point, no. We already had an environmental management area set up, and as I say, our fleet was doing its thing. I think as this trial continues to grow and succeed and we start bringing bigger volumes in, yes, we're absolutely going to have to.
For good reason.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you. And Jason, what are you doing at the moment? What's currently happening?
So we are at an exciting stage at the moment where we're starting to work with our national housing developers. So we're starting to trial putting crates onto the sites. So when the installer's working on a plot on the site, they now have the ability to put those used products in the day, cut-offs, brick wrap, etc., into a crate on site. So we've started a trial with Tillier Homes, and we've now very excitedly started a trial with Vistry Homes. So we're working in collaboration with these national developers, understand how we can best remove the plastic from the site, get it returned to Polypipe, so Polypipe can remove it back and put it back into the supply chain. So it's where we can have the maximum impact from our perspective with the relationship that Plumb Centre already has with our housing developers, which is very strong, linked in with the strong relationship that Polypipe already have with the developers. This will allow us to change the culture on site because there's a desire out there to recycle. What we need to do now is ensure that they have the capability to be able to do it.
Right, and how quickly do you expect to see results from the trials, so to speak?
Well, we're starting to see results now, albeit slow. We're at early stages, but we are starting to see the results now. And the feedback that we're getting from the developers is exceptionally strong. So they have seen other parts of the industry sort of recognise the opportunity to move product back in. They don't want it to go to second-line recycle merchants. They want to see it go back into an ability to manufacture. So that's definitely working really well so far. I'm very positive.
Becky, I'm sure we'd all agree recycling is a great idea, but how simple is it?
Nowhere near as simple as it should be.
Right.
I think you'll find that the UK is actually quite far behind the rest of Europe. Europe's about 2 years ahead of us. So we're currently in a bit of a in-betweeny stage. We are in an open loop recycle program at the moment. So we can take pipes and fittings in and they can be turned back into pipes or fittings. Europe is already ahead of us and they're in a closed loop system. So they have to turn pipe back into pipe and fittings back into fittings. We're in a bit of a grace period. And our legislation hasn't been touched since the 80s, and that
I was going to say, is it legislation driving this, or are you driving the legislation almost from the back end?
So we need to be driving it from the back end because we haven't looked at it since the 80s, and we have these really ambitious targets to use a higher percentage recyclate in our manufacturing process, and yet the legislation kind of ties your hands on certain products. So anything that touches potable water has to be entirely virgin material.
Right.
And what we're saying is, if we can take in a British Standards Institute, do the testing and prove that a product that's made with recyclate can meet the same performance and safety standards, we should be allowed to do that.
Putting political talk aside, are you talking to government about that? There is a
We are.
Yeah, there is.
We're part of a few
Whoever
different,
it might be.
Yeah, a few different industry bodies that are trying to lobby government at that level. So there's the British Pipes Federation, there's the European Plastic Piping Federation, there's SIFI and BEMA, and we're all kind of saying the same thing, that
Right.
the intent is there, the capacity is getting there, but the legislation is lagging that bit behind, and it's kind of hamstringing us a bit.
Has it been falling on deaf ears, or have they been quite receptive to it?
I don't think it helps that it's an election year.
Probably not. No, I get that.
I think, again, the desire is there, but I think it's going to take a long time to change that. We're going to probably have to prove through trials that this is perfectly reasonable, it meets all the standards, it's not a safety issue, and then we might be able to drag that forwards.
Right. Go on, Jason.
And I think we have a responsibility. So we have a large voice.
Yep.
We're a national merchant. We're a national sort of supplier of plastic material. We're the people that should be starting the conversation and pushing the agenda to allow legislation to take. Yeah, without a doubt. So I mean, if we can't do it, then who can?
Exactly.
So we should be having those responsible conversations. I'd be seen to be doing it, not just talking about it.
Right.
And it's sort of legislation driven because we are going to have to adopt the same standards that Europe have. It's coming. Brexit did not affect that. But to be honest, this is not a profit-making activity. This is not something that either of us is, benefiting financially from. It's just the right thing to do. We should all be pushing in that direction.
Yeah. Thank you. And Jason, what's next for you? What's on the agenda, so to speak?
Well, from my perspective, the next part is probably the most exciting part. So what we're looking to do in our fourth stage of this is actually give the opportunity for our installers to come back into our Plumb centres and bring plastic in from their own jobs. So we have we're fortunate where we have over 400 branches in our estate. So there's maximum sort of access to bringing product back. What we'll then do is we'll then sort of collate that product within branch. That'll go back to our distribution centres centrally, and that'll then in turn go back to Polypipe. So from our perspective, we will look at how we can encourage the plumbers to bring that back in.
Give them money. That'll do it.
But I just think sort of that really pushes the agenda across because that gives an access to getting product back into that supply chain.
And are you finding installers are jumping on board with this in terms of what they're feeling and what they're seeing? I know we spoke to some apprentices earlier, and they're really switched on as far as the future is concerned. And you finding that with, you know, crusty old installers of my age sort of thing, are they equally as enthusiastic?
Very, very much so. So, and it's more what can we do to push this forward. So the idea of being able to access sort of an area within the Plumb centres where they can bring plastic back with the support of a key supplier,
Yeah.
they just see as a no-brainer. So that's be able to
And
put
it
it back.
is. It
And
is a
of course it
no-brainer,
is.
yeah.
And you've got a situation now where we have most of our industry now has a much better environmental consciousness.
Yeah.
And when they're talking about working on site, well, even when they're delivering to work within their customers are asking them what they're doing with their waste products. So to be able to do that is certainly a great support.
Brilliant, Becky. Yeah.
I think it's so easy to feel as an individual that the things that you do don't matter, that the scale of it is so small. How can it be making an impact?
Versus such a large
Yeah.
situation, yeah.
But when you bake it into your normal process, hopefully people are visiting their plumbers merchants a couple of times a week. And when you've got the ease of, I'll just keep that packaging in the van or that off-cut, just stick it in the back of the van, and then I know that later this week I have a designated
Exactly, because
place
how
for
often
it
are
to
they
go.
popping in? They're popping in at least once a week, probably, sometimes multiple times a week, so it's dead easy just to...
And that's it. Sort of most installers, at least 3 times a week.
Yeah.
So it's what we need to do. We need to make it habitual. We need to make sure that when they come in, they are going. Well, it's normal practice to bring the rubbish back.
So is it? Look, I'm just thinking out of the box here, and shoot me down if you like. But is there a way that you might think about giving them recycled bags of some sort that they could use? They just throw it in there at the end of a day on the job that they could bring in dedicated to this.
Never say never.
Never say never. You don't get anything for free though. Jason, do you have a message for hard-working installers here today? What would it be if you did have one?
My message would be, this is not going to go away. So we need to be looking at opportunities to recycle product, whether it's individuals, whether it's small companies, large companies, or national merchants. Keep on asking the question. The way we push this forward for our installers is having that asked there in the first place. We're going to give the mechanism for them to be able to do that, to be more environmentally conscious in their day-to-day work. Their customer base is going to be able to start talking to your customers about it. Your customers will push the installer, and the installer in turn will push us. What we need to do is give them the opportunity, and that's what our sort of our responsibility is, to allow them to do that.
Right, and Becky, as Channel Marketing Manager, I guess you're going to be pushing it in social channels and so on and so forth.
Absolutely, and we want to make it as easy as possible for everybody to take part. We're not going to be making this, really strict rules. We'll only take this and this thing. It will be as easy as possible for you to bring whatever you can, and we will do the hard work of sorting it, turning it into the useful product, and giving it back to you as useful product.
And someone, I think the day before yesterday, we were having a discussion on a panel, and someone was saying, turn it from why you should to why wouldn't you?
Very much so. And from my perspective, we've announced this week that we have a new application. This was a new Plumb Pro.
Right.
And what I'd like to do is try and build into that the recycle program into our Plumb Pro. So when our members log on and sign up for Plumb Pro, there's the incentive within there, or the recognition that they're doing recycling. So sort of it is very much, why wouldn't you, instead of why would you?
Brilliant. Well, look, thank you for coming and sparing some time.
Thank
Good
you.
luck. Let's sit down in a year's time and see how far you've got with it. It'd be fascinating to see, and how much the government, whoever it is, has listened or not in the intervening time. But go on.
I was going to say thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. There you go.